Namaste. Well, hi there, little buddy bears. I'm not drunk. Why do I seem drunk? For about the last 3 weeks, I've been having a little bit of jaw pain. I guess it's this thing called TMJ, not to be confused with TMI or TMZ. It's not too bad. It just kind of keeps me up at night and it makes me sleep a lot, and it's very irritating and it's very distracting. As a result, I feel weirdly shy about the show. Like I've been really putting it off, and I have a lot of episodes to do, but I'm just kind of not feeling up to it. Here's where the rubber meets the road. I go on this show and I give people advice about how to handle a lot of what this show is, in my opinion, is like how to handle insecurity and self-doubt. When I got really into it, I started with the idea of doing integral theory, but the heart of it sort of came when I made this resolution to not hold myself back anymore. My power and my strength is just getting out there and doing it, not being afraid. I've been through a lot of hard feelings, but this whole time for the last year, I haven't really felt that sort of cosmic shame, that fear of judgment. You know, it's silly. Like, what do I think I'm afraid of? What am I worried about? Like, you guys are going to come and lock me up. You could say mean things, but I don't care about that. It doesn't really bother me. It's more this sort of just abstract fear that if I do it wrong, I lose the opportunity to do it right, I think is probably the best way to put it. My resolution is simply to look at it, to not hold myself back. This is where it gets kind of neat. I actually started thinking about some of my stuff, our stuff, James and I, our stuff from the show. Like, well, what do you do in this situation? What would we tell you to do? What would Unthink Me do? Unthink Me is what cheered me up and what got me out of it, and why I'm able to just do it anyway right now. The feeling is that I never really feel like my stuff's good. Don't get me wrong, and never fool yourself about that. No matter whether it's kind of on the better end of things or the worse end of things, I always think everything I do is crap. Just because I know what I'm trying to do and I know what it could be, and it isn't that. It's far from that. So I'm very self-judgmental, and because nothing will ever measure up to that, I then exaggerate to it's worthless and nobody could ever like it. The limitations make it valueless, right? That's a great mindset to have if you have the resources, and I mean like all the time, the money, and the energy to do something perfectly. Then you know exactly what must be done. But almost all of us, whether we're talking about relationships or work, your actual job, or art that you do, we really don't have those resources to make a thing perfect. Just to make it good enough that it's in some way a step up from where you've been before. That's what we can actually accomplish realistically, especially when the switch goes down and we don't know how to lift it back up necessarily. We got a pretty heavy snow, and I can't go out much. I can't really afford to go out much. I haven't been able to work. I don't have a job right now, and I'm applying to stuff, and it's not working out very well. I've been pretty shut in, and I think back to James saying, just, you're never alone. There's always a critter or a creature or a person somewhere around. It's just, whether you interpret that as a sentient being to interact with or not. The big one for me is that I-thou relationship with God, with the universe, with spirit. Just as when you're in a relationship, you might have that honeymoon, or you might have those moments that are just sublime and perfect, and you're so certain and it works so well. Well, you also have moments where you feel doubt and you feel uncertain and maybe afraid to commit yourself so hard to this, or maybe you just kind of see something that's not so desirable and it just makes you feel doubtful, right? Well, same with life, same with the universe. And I think that really resiliency comes down a lot to just remembering that kind of oath to yourself. And in this case, I've made this decision to romantically love the universe, to just treat the universe like a relationship that I really, really want to work. Because when I apply that to relationships, it doesn't tend to work. It seems to be a toxic force. But what about to life itself? Because life can't really abandon me or betray me. Only this is a relationship between me and my projected self, so whatever happens in this relationship is entirely my fault. Today, what I want to do, so that's kind of giving you a little backbone. I hope to get a little squishy today. And if you're not into squishy, this might not be the video for you. I was asking for help with shadow work, cleaning up. Ken Wilber term, Jungian term, shadow work. Ken Wilber term, cleaning up. Same deal. I had a conversation with ChatGPT that was fairly moving, and also I think it's really educational, and I feel like this might be helpful to some of you guys out there. So kind of the central question is, how do I realistically do this 3-2-1 shadow process? How do I actually begin to integrate or internalize my shadow material, like realistically? And how big do you go with that? Can I do it with the biggest stuff, or does it have to be little, moment to moment things in order what's more effective? Is it possible for me to do shadow work on like the really, really heavy, deep stuff? Okay. And then finally, when should I stop crying about it? I think is a really, whether we're talking about grief or loss or disappointment or betrayal or heartbreak, those things that make us cry. I didn't and I don't know the answer to this question. I believe that crying is good for you, that sensitivity and intelligence go hand in hand, but also toughness and intelligence sort of do. I mean, toughness and stupidity definitely go hand in hand, but there's a certain, if you're too thick-skinned, you don't allow reality to be as it is. You're controlling it, and you're forcing round pegs in square holes. It is a certain type of sensitivity. Green meme is the sensitive self. That's the highest common stage. And higher stages are kind of a new, an integration of toughness and sensitivity. The masculine internal parent and the feminine internal parent. The masculine sort of is that drive, that just do it kind of attitude. And this isn't to say this is how men and women are supposed to be. I'm just referring to like the duality of the cosmos itself. And the feminine being more nurturing, like, it's okay, don't worry so much, you're okay. Yeah, I still love you, even though you're not perfect, right? Those two forces, they're at war with each other, right? Whether even in the male-female, in relationships, in parent-family stuff, parent-child stuff, Freudian stuff, but also just in the self, just in your own. One of the interesting things about life that I find is that in a way, I'm a genetic clone of my mother and father, and whatever their relationship was, they didn't get along. They got along very well, and then didn't, right? That is who I am. I'm a genetic clone of that. I'm both of them. My goal is to make the integration that couldn't be made with them or perish, it would seem. That, if your mom is this, soft, sensitive green meme type, and your dad is this like orange meme, rough and tumble, hardworking man, and not in touch with his emotions, and, she's not very practical, blah, yada, yada, all that. This is kind of what my upbringing was. I got a lot of nurture from mom, but she had trouble hanging together. And my dad kind of modeled effective human behavior, but not very intimate, not very supportive, not very useful to a child, to a family. So those have always been at odds within me, and those are my burden to reconcile. So we're talking about internalized parents. This is when Magenta Meme sees the universe as a parent, this is who we're talking about, is your actual idea of what a parent is, which is most likely very similar to what your parents were like, unfortunately. So this goes deep. It isn't just about stuff that happened when you were a kid. It's still how you see the universe until it isn't. It's a thing that I struggle with a lot. Growing up, I felt alienated from myself a little bit in the masculine sense. I didn't feel like I really made sense in the masculine mold, and I sort of crossed over to transgender or gender fluid identity, which came as a huge watershed for me, a really important move for me emotionally. Not just to embrace, my feminine energy or my more supportive and nurturing side and accepting side of myself, but to actually embody that and to actually see myself as that and to experience myself through that. So there's this great masculine-feminine duality living within me. In order to get in front of people and talk about my emotions, very, very foreign thing for me. I'm very insecure. requires not just that masculine push, but also that feminine acceptance. And when those meet, either in partnership or just in your relationship with yourself, you know it, you feel it. It's beautiful, it's love. That's what love can be, is. This can be your relationship with with the cosmos, with your environment, with your life, with life itself, with the universe, being romantically in love with the universe. And so I say affirmations. I say, you're beautiful, you're smart, everyone likes you, everyone wants you around, right? This is me playing pretend that the universe is saying nice things to me, and I'm saying nice things back. I want to be here. I like my life. This is my life. I'm happy with it. I want this. I'm excited about tomorrow. I'm excited about the people in my life. I have so much stuff to explore with everyone. This is a form of therapy, really just kind of gratitude and positivity practice. And this is what I do this stuff, and it kind of comes as a state experience. And when it falls away, my switch goes down, I feel insecure again. I feel worried again. I feel like everyone hates me. I feel anxious. I feel like I can't do it. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I can't make it. I'm unlovable. But I can still remember, luckily I recorded this stuff, and I can refer back to it. I edited it. I've seen it a lot. I've read your comments. So I'm really familiar with my work, and I'm telling you, it really works for me. I hope it works for you, and it really works for me. It has helped me just through this phase. I feel so great, so okay, let's say, because I did, we're at like more than a month, maybe 2 months now without any inebriants, which, for some people that's nothing. For me, it was a big deal. It was hard for me to quit that stuff. I had issues with my identity, being locked up in it and feeling kind of entitled. And it was important for me to be a yoga guy, to quit doing that, to do yoga the way that I understand yoga, controlling my own mental, emotional stuff, to meditate every day, which, if you meditate whenever you want, it's usually pretty pleasant. But if you are really on a pretty strict schedule and you're kind of serious about it, there are times when it can get really challenging. Mostly in terms of the sense of it kind of like, oh, I have to do it. Just I have to go to this like dark, quiet place. I don't want to. I want to be riled up. I want stimulation. It's dead of winter. I'm sick. I'm sleeping 12 hours a day. Oh my God, I'm going to spend a whole other hour in dark and silence. And then I'm going to go get under cold water. It's like, oh my God, and like, let me be the first to say 100% like first world white people problems. Granted, I understand. I'm a little baby. This is the feminine acceptance of the self. Whatever is difficult for me, that just is the case. I'm a very, very sensitive creature. You need to be sensitive to be intelligent, and you need to be tough to be intelligent. And what those words mean to you are going to differ so incredibly widely, and what they meant 2 generations back, what they're going to mean in 2 more generations, it's so relative, it's so arbitrary. Meditate. I'm a squeamish person. I'm scared of death, torture, imprisonment, just injustice, just terrible things, getting in car wrecks, heights, it changes what I'm afraid of, but I'm quite frightened. And when I meditate a lot, it really brings that to the forefront. It really exposes that to me. So as I meditate more and more, I'm unable to keep down, or I allow in, more like I let in these sort of darker fantasies, these sort of more painful, searing, like injustice, just brutality stuff. As you allow yourself to see more of what is, more of the universe, it's a lot of it's joy and beauty, but a lot of it isn't too. There's ugliness, and there's horrible pain, and there's lots and lots of it. And this is what this is our frontier. This is what we're going into. And it's a form of toughness. I'm not claiming that I do anything incredibly tough or hard physically or painful, but being more and more aware of it, and allowing more and more of it to enter your mind, and to experience the infinity of every moment. It's like you may recognize from the idea of like a bad trip, when you do psychedelics, most of the material is going to be joyful, funny, happy, beautiful, amazing, hilarious, but a lot of it too will kind of expose you to these more challenging, dark things. Like you imagine yourself cut up into tiny bits, or you imagine like just puppies getting thrown into a volcano and stuff like that. Wow, it's so crazy. What? That really happens. That's real. People get buried alive, stuff like that. It's just when those boundaries kind of dissolve away, it's all just right here in your face. There are people in concentration camps right now. That's the real thing that's happening. There's child soldiers and a lot of stuff I can't say on YouTube. Kind of weird, right? How YouTube is very specific about what you can and can't say anymore. We're going to get into 3-2-1 Shadow and crying, and I'm going to walk you through a kind of dialogue I had with ChatGPT. As James and I have pointed out in our podcast, we did a whole show on like what shadow is, what it means from various different kind of perspectives, whether we're talking about New Age, Jungian, Ken Wilber, what it should mean to you if you don't care about any of that stuff, right? Things like that. Shadow is talking about the kind of stuff that we bring out in conventional therapy, like why you would go to a therapist. I'm being neurotic. Something is bothering me more than it should, or I'm getting too enticed by it. I'm becoming a fool because of it, right? I'm sort of acting strange. I have a fixation or an allergy to something. Something is intense for me, right? Emotionally intense. So this is a clue. This means there's some shadow there. Now, unnecessarily intense, intensely positive or intensely negative, both of those can be problematic, and they're both a sort of distortion. So this is to suggest that there's something in you that's maybe knotted up. Your experiences have led to a sort of knot that hasn't been untied yet. So there's shadow here. There's something that you don't want to face, and maybe the way that you experience it is sort of through a mirror, through some sort of distortion or projection or disowned. It's like disowned. Like I often use the example, like, I'm not an angry person. I never get mad. I never get riled up. It's just everyone else is always so pissed off. Sometimes I let it get to me, sure. So I'm actually angry. Duh. If I'm not an angry person, it won't really bother me that other people seem angry a lot of the time. Now therapy is therapy, right? You talk to someone about it. They challenge you to see it from different perspectives. They challenge you to try different tones with how you talk to yourself and different techniques to deal with it, right? Various kinds of therapy. This is a particular kind that you can do on yourself. So 3-2-1 refers to third person, second person, first person. The third person view might actually, you might not start there. It might just be a feeling. I don't know. If something's really, really repressed and disowned, you might not even acknowledge it as a third person reality. But let's come up with an example now. Some people in my life that I'm close with, it might be kind of how I magnetize and what I don't really acknowledge as red flags, or it might just be coincidence, but I notice that a lot of the time I feel people are smug to me, people are belittling to me. In particular, this is kind of relevant to the channel because it's like when I talk about integral theory, I feel like people are really quick to put it away. They'll make fun of it. They'll call it names. They'll come out like they know better, talk over me, say that's all a bunch of crap. This is how it really is, So smug and belittling, those are kind of the key words. You can pick one or the other. And that makes me really insecure. So that's not necessarily a problem in and of itself, but it makes me feel really pent up, and I don't know how to respond. I kind of retreat inward, and then later on I think back and I'm kind of angry, and I go, well, why didn't I say this? I had good comebacks. Like, why did I just let them trample over me like that? Why did I go into this like freeze state and let them hurt me like that? And then maybe sometimes I will stand up and fight back, but I'll overdo it. I'll push too hard. And it's like, whoa, like that guy just blew a gasket over some stupid like philosophy crap. We're just talking about ideas, bro. So either way, it's like there's too much intensity there. There's something I'm really resisting there. So I've been able to articulate it in the third person. It feels like to me, I'm being treated in a smug and belittling way. I'm not being acknowledged and respected for the work that I've done in trying to kind of put together a cogent personal philosophy. I don't feel welcome with my heart and my mind when I introduce integral theory to people. Okay, so second person now, I want to take that and I want to inhabit the thing that I'm rallied against, and I want to have a dialogue with it, and I and you, just like we're talking about with spirit, third person, second person, first person. So second person shadow, don't you understand that all I care about in life is this ideological stuff, this intellectual thinking about ethics and reason and philosophy, and how we can get better at communicating about these ideas and how we can grow as people. Like, this is my entire fixation. I've made so many sacrifices to explore this really wholeheartedly, and when people just kind of bulldoze over me and say, oh, I already know all that, you're wasting your time, it hurts my feelings. It's like I've done all that. I've been single-mindedly focused on it, and I'm not terribly stupid. And I still have so much further to go. So it's like, I think it's silly, for you to act like it's so simple, I think is why I feel bulldozed. Well, there's not, that's your choice to do all that, but there's so many other things you can do with your life. You can spend your time that way, but notice here, you don't have all the things you need. You're often desperate for money. You're desperate for in relationships. You have to rely on other people a lot, emotionally, financially. You haven't really taken care of everything, and you haven't been very well self-directed in your life. You haven't made the decisions that result in you being a fully independent adult because of focus. So this is the truth that I, as other, have arrived at, is you don't have to figure out the entire nature of reality. You don't have to understand what the monks and the philosophers understand. You just gotta feed the little mouths in your nest, right? You just gotta build a nest and you gotta build a spider web, and that's it. And you catch flies with it. And sometimes life is just simple. You get a job, you work really hard. It's kind of belittling to me that you feel like you are entitled and you have the right to do all this, to meditate and do yoga and put your, like, go to places and do social experiments. Like, I have to work. I have to take care of people. I have responsibilities. I have pain I have illness that you don't have. I have mental illness that you don't have. I have ADHD that you don't have. You have no comprehension of how lucky you are to have the privilege of doing all this fun, ideal, intellectual hipster crap. and so much of it is kind of pointless, right? Because what do you get out of it ultimately? You get to feel like happy and fulfilled. Well, that must be real nice for you, right? But notice, you're here, you're needing from me to be more supportive of you. So if you're the one that's gone off on a mountain and solved all of life's problems and really learned a great deal about compassion and forgiveness and self-acceptance, you should be the one taking care of me emotionally, not the other way around. I'm not saying that your system's dumb or anything. I just don't get it. It's tough. Like you said, you're single-mindedly dedicated to this. Maybe you don't appreciate that when you have a conversation with me, you're kind of forcing me to learn all this stuff that I'm not really in the mood for, that I'd rather spend time with you more casually, just kind of doing what normal friends do, hanging out, passing time, watching movies, fishing, whatever. When you start coming out with this, like, Ken Wilber vulnerability stuff, it's like kind of, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to watch your Unthink Me show. I don't know what it's about. It doesn't concern me. I can't. I don't have time for it. It's not that I don't have time for you. I can't engage with this on the level that you want me to. So that was a second person dialogue. If you don't know, that was me being Schmeagol and talking to myself, trying to reconcile the position of the me feeling hurt by the smug, belittling character that manifests and as an archetype in a lot of my relationships with others. It does not need to be as long-winded as this. I'm just really kind of unpacking it for the show. First person. I'm tired of overwrought and, deep that I am. It's like I can't just let a thing be a thing. I have to always overcomplicate it, deconstruct it, overanalyze it. It's like sometimes a mountain is just a mountain, right? Overthinking, overanalyzing separate the body from the mind. I have a lot of trouble with the first person. This one's hard for me. And this is the whole point of the exercise, right? I'm being smug to you. I'm being smug. I'm smug. I'm the one who thinks I know better. That's why I do a show, because on some level I must think I have something to share with you that is superior to what a lot of you already have, or at least would augment your life in some way. So I'm belittling you in a sense with this integral theory stuff is to the extent that you don't already know it. So if I'm teaching you something, it's kind of belittling your level of education or your knowledge of the world, saying you really need to know this and you don't know this. That's actually me being belittling and smug toward you. How would I know what you need? How would I know what you want? That's why I get so bent out of shape by the smugness and the belittlingness, is because I feel like that's my right to be that way. I'm the one who deserves to belittle you. To be smug towards you, and yet you're just coming up out of nowhere and broadsiding me with this smug energy based on, your shallow, whether it's your true believer religious program that you belittle me with, or your simple pragmatism, or your nihilistic, atheistic, diabolical, lyrical denizens of the deep to do the announcer test. But, regardless, or the green meme, a perspectival, existential position, nobody knows better than anyone else. Everybody's perfectly valid and right about everything. Right. So that invalidates me. So when I feel invalidated, it must be understood that it's because I wish to invalidate you. I wish to show you a better way, and it frustrates me that you think it's the other way around. There's this sort of jealousy thing there, or a competitive thing there. All right. So deliberately long-winded exercise there. 3-2-1 process. So I hope that made a little bit of sense. Maybe I could do like a simpler one. Oh, here's a really simple one. One time I was talking about meditation to my partner at the time while driving. This was Jet, fake person, made her up. We're driving down the road in Portland, and I'm just mentioning, I'm really into meditation. I for many years I did it like every day, and then someone like cuts me off or is in my blind spot in Portland, and I'm like, oh, fucking unbelievable! Did you see that? And go right back into talking about meditation. She's like, do you not understand how ridiculous that is? You're talking about like peace of mind, equanimity, and in this very moment that you do it, you get out of control, angry at someone cutting you off. And that really made my blood boil, because it is funny and it is ironic. It's like a silly thing that happened by coincidence, but it isn't the case that just because you're interested in meditation and you do meditation that you should be 100% equanimous and detached from all that occurs. That would be the culmination of many, many years of practice. And so in the third person, I felt like it was condescending, and I felt like she was missing the point, and I felt like she was sort of just trying to entrap me and make me feel silly, trying to put me down, okay? Second person, she was just saying, she had a funny observation. It actually was funny. If I was trying to be funny, she was trying to be funny, right? We could have had some good repartee there, but I got all bent out of shape. Okay, so first person, it was ridiculous. I was actually being ridiculous. I should have appreciated the irony of talking about like meditation for peace and emotional stability while I'm getting mad about someone cutting me off while driving. All right, 3-2-1 shadow. Okay, so Ken Wilber's 3-2-1 shadow process is a method designed to integrate disowned or projected emotions by moving from detachment in the third person to relational engagement in the second person, and finally to personal ownership in the first person. I went for the long bomb. This isn't how you should begin doing shadow work. You want to, but don't do it this way. I've been doing it for a minute, and so if you've been following my show to the very depths of it, you probably know that about a year ago I had a really major falling out, betrayal with my partner. I call her Celesta in the show. She left me for another man. We were very committed. There was no breakup. It just happened one day after, constantly declaring that we want to spend our lives together and planning for that eventuality, trying to make that our future. It just one day wasn't the case anymore. She had found someone else. This has been my therapy for that, actually, doing the show and kind of earning back my self-confidence and my right to exist in my own mind, my feeling of self-worth and my feeling of dignity, because this show is, to me, the thing that's most important for me to do. Like, that's a choice that I made that's to do with my relationship with spirit. I really believe that doing the show is valuable to the world and extremely valuable to me as well. So this has been my cross to bear. This has been what I've been working on mainly in the last year, on and off the show. I am in therapy. My therapist is really great. I cry every day. I really miss her. I miss her daughter. It hurts a lot. I'm okay. Everything's fine. It's just I was really happy in that situation, and that situation ended very unexpectedly. I didn't feel like I had the opportunity. I feel like I was sort of robbed of the opportunity to say goodbye and to have closure. I don't think that stuff's all that important, but it's not just the ending of it, it's that the betrayal part made it feel so cheap, that I was such a fool, that I had bought into this thing and really believed in it so much. And then I'm just kind of standing there with this stupid little thing that I'd built for another person and they didn't want it. That was kind of the feeling that I had decided to give up everything for this relationship and was happy with that. Had finally arrived at being happy with that and wanting that more than anything. And then it was just, that was a joke. It was like the whole point was just to get you to admit that, and then I run off with someone else and laugh at you. So it was very humiliating, and I felt the main reason why it's so traumatizing for me is the betrayal part of it, not the loss of someone and not grieving that they're gone, although there is a lot of that, and not worrying about what their fate will be, although there's quite a bit of that as well. But the biggest part of it, the biggest negative part, is just that sense of my trust being shattered, that I really genuinely believed in her and in us, and I really was wrong. I was just, I really was fooled, and I'm not really embarrassed, vis-a-vis you or vis-a-vis my friends, but just in my own self. It makes it hard to make any decision, to put myself out there and be vulnerable or strong to try at anything, because it's like I tried so hard at this thing and it ended up just humiliating me, being not even a real opportunity. It was just kind of a trick. It was a booby trap for the unwary traveler. That's what I've been dealing with. That's been a big part of it. And I'm very again, this show is all about vulnerability, so I'm being very upfront about that. It might seem weird to you, but I don't mind sharing this with everyone who cares, who wants to listen. I'm not ashamed of it. Or maybe I'm a little ashamed of it, but I'm not ashamed to share it with you. I mean, I'm really not ashamed of it. I really think I wasn't stupid or anything. I believed in something, and that's dangerous, and I took a big risk, and I was wrong. So what I wanted to do, what I tried to do here with ChatGPT was I wanted to do the 3-2-1 shadow process with that betrayal. So I say, how would this work in the case where I feel betrayed by my partner leaving me for somebody else? Okay, like, to make a long story short, Step 1, third person, observe. Describe the situation or person. Imagine your partner and their actions leaving you for someone else as if you're a detached observer. My partner left me for someone else. They seem happy, and this new person seems to offer something I couldn't. It feels unfair and cruel. So I don't have any problem with that. I got through that part pretty quick. I was able to do that pretty quick. I can just say out loud, yeah, I'm jealous. I feel slighted. I'm mad at her for doing that. I don't think it was a good choice, but I do think that was what she wanted. She did what she wanted, and he certainly offered her something that I wasn't offering her, and that felt really unfair. It felt really deliberate in terms of like the timing and the desire to make me feel jealous and hurt, and to really rub it in. Focus on the emotion or trait you're projecting. What is it about this situation that triggers you most? Betrayal, rejection, or feeling unworthy? Rejection, not so much. Rejection doesn't really matter. Abandonment, I feel like there's a lot of people in my life, and I'm kind of solitary anyway, so abandonment's not a big deal to me. It definitely is the betrayal. That's how you piss me off. So that's focusing on the emotion that you're projecting, the betrayal, I want to say. So this step creates a safe psychological distance to articulate the emotion without becoming overwhelmed. That was our third person step one. Step 2, dialogue. Engage in an imaginary dialogue. Imagine speaking directly to the person or situation. Express your feelings and ask questions to understand. Why did you betray me? Was I not enough for you? How could you replace me so easily? So that's AI's questions, and they're spot on. Yeah, like I will ask myself and the wind these questions. So many questions, how could you do this to me? Don't you remember all these things that we said, all these promises that we made? Don't you remember this and that? And let the emotion speak back. Imagine the person or emotion responding. What does betrayal say? What does rejection say? Now, this is a little complicated because we're dealing with a particular psychological phenomenon. This is not controversial between her and I, that she does this behavior that's kind of mysterious to both of us and recognizable to both of us. I magnetize for it. I've seen it a lot. My mother did this behavior, not to me, but to men in her life, and I witnessed it, and that made me attracted to it, I guess. So their example is, you feel vulnerable because you trusted so deeply. You're hurt because you wanted to be valued and chosen. In the second person, I feel like you want to be the other person, and I'm just thinking like, what she would say would be to point out all the things that I was doing wrong, how I wasn't entirely there for her, how I missed out on opportunities to be a better partner, how I failed her by focusing on the wrong things, and just by not being able to deliver what you wanted. I'm supposed to say second person. Their example says is more sympathetic. So in this case, it would be more like saying, like, I hurt you really badly. I knew that this would happen. We saw this coming. I tried to stop it from happening. I tried to warn you, but I lost control. I lost whatever it was that we had together. I just kind of, it went away, and I started feeling it for this other person very quickly. Things happened very fast, and I just pretty much redirected all my feelings toward this new thing, and I just wasn't concerned about you or interested in you anymore. See, it's weird because we did have these conversations, and this is kind of what I'm saying is kind of what she was saying, but for the exercise, I think I'm supposed to more be myself as her. So I don't think I'm supposed to apologize or anything like that, or even, express negative judgment toward me. You wanted it to last forever. You knew it was somewhat unrealistic and that it would be very difficult. You were afraid of all the opportunities that you would miss out on in life by staying in small town central Michigan, without any kind of prospects for employment and without really knowing what you were doing with yourself. Just like I did, you really rushed into this. Like, even though we both were complicit in this, we both knew that it was not wise to rush into a relationship so hard and fast and strong with a child involved. We spent so much of our time just doing fun stuff, going on trips. Well, that was kind of more my point than anything. You feel gullible, you feel vulnerable and gullible and foolish for trusting me so much, for giving me so much power to hurt you, for letting me go and stay overnight at other men's houses without question, without even, it makes sense, that's fine. You gave me so much power to hurt you, and then that's what happened. And I told you that I have a problem with, like, a lot of my relationships go this way. This is kind of what happens with love with me, is I feel this strong urge to provoke jealousy, to become physical with other people, and to kind of play the two off of each other. Do like the Twilight thing. And I made you feel so special, so chosen. It's like I made you feel like you were just perfect. I couldn't even explain why. Just something about you just made you feel very attractive, very wanted, perfect for me. That's what I kept saying was, that you were perfect for me. And you just believed it. So, it's not surprising that, you thought we were going to spend the rest of our lives together, because that's what we said. Okay, so that should be step 2. I'm not sure if I did that properly, but that's us having that second person dialogue. Step 3, first person, identify. Claim the emotion or trait as your own. Recognize that the emotions or traits you see in the other person are also aspects of yourself. So in their example, I have felt betrayed before, not just by others, but by my own choices or expectations. I've felt rejection in myself when I didn't live up to my standards. The fear of abandonment is within me. This is where it starts getting kind of crazy. And I totally get this. Like, it's so easy for me to blame her, right? Because she did the action, the betrayal action. She conned me, she set up the expectation and then dumped it, right? But a thing that I definitely had to recognize, not only by this point, but several relationships before, is it can't possibly be the other person if this is like the 5th time this exact same thing has happened. So this is, I hope some of you, if anybody is watching this, I hope that this makes sense and rings true for you and your experience. If you're, if this is of interest to you, then you're probably like me, and you just can't deny, like, even though the other person totally did it, and they totally admit that they did it, and they apologize, and they know they're wrong, or maybe they don't, but I'm just saying, even if that is the case, it keeps happening to you because there's something you're doing to produce this. You are the one causing this, and I've been saying this the whole time, right? So you're right, ChatGPT. It's not even just relationships. It is this sense of needing to be special, needing to be wanted, feeling like I'm not wanted, that I'm overlooked, that I'm unappreciated. I'm sort of a martyr. I'm sort of a victim of nice guys finish last kind of thing, right? And I have such a desire to prove that wrong. I want to win even though I didn't break all the rules, and I'm not doing all this like cheater bullshit that wins the game, and I see it clearly, but I just don't want to do it that way. And I really keep hoping beyond hope that something would just break the pattern, and I don't have to compromise on my morals. I don't have to sell myself short. I don't have to hold myself back. But just someday all the pistons would align, and then I would meet someone like you. I would meet someone who values me for exactly who I am and what I actually have to offer, who I really am, which I think is just, I'm really great. I really think I am a great catch for the right person. And so that's precisely what makes me victimizable. That's what makes this happen, is that I really need, in my heart, not in real life, I don't need anything, but in my heart, I need for someone to really value me, to really just can't get enough of me, right? In myself too, you can see where there's that rejection going on. Like right now, I don't want to show up for a podcast because I'm embarrassed. Well, what does that mean? I don't approve of myself. I don't approve of this show. It's the main thing I do with my life, and it's not good enough for me. That is rejection. Face it. I just went to an open mic the other night and I didn't even sign up. I just watched everyone else. Oh, how humble of me, right? Well, what does that mean about me as a songwriter? Like, I don't approve of my own music. I've written more than 1,000 songs and I don't think I'm good enough. And I sit there and watch everyone else and I pass silent judgment on all of them and pretend I really like it. But, I have my judgments. I have my thoughts, notes. I get it. That's not the way to be. I judge myself. I'm a harsh critic of myself and I need to cut that out. Hence, no holding back. That's what we're talking about. This comes back to childhood stuff. This comes back to the sense of being neglected or abandoned and needing more than what you get. And so this is some real mental cement, right? It was stuff that you really gotta get serious, or I hope you have the time. I hope you have the energy. I hope you're not in pain and you can do some of this work on yourself. No matter who you are, I guarantee you have something like what I have. Seriously, like no matter who you are, I guarantee you have something like what I have. Integrate the insight. Acknowledge and accept these parts of yourself with compassion. Instead of seeing the betrayal as something external, recognize it as a reflection of an internal fear or wound. So that's what we're talking about. This is a pattern. It's gone on a long time. I'm really ticked off about it. I'm really, at times I've felt like giving up. At times I sell myself short. I can't make it to the party. I can't show up because I just feel like such a heel. Like I can never get what I want. Like I'll never figure it out. And then I don't even want to be there anymore. I don't even want people to see me or know me because I just feel like I'll let them down. I'll fail again. And that's sweet. That's a really cool, it's cool that I care that much. Like that I wouldn't trouble you. I wouldn't trouble you with me, with being myself here, if I didn't feel like I had anything to give you. I think that's pretty nice. That's pretty good. In their example, the betrayal I feel is tied to my fear of losing connection. I've also betrayed myself by holding on to people who couldn't meet my needs. Yeah, there is some of that too. Like I said, it wears you down, it fatigues you, and you get to a point where you're desperate and you'll kind of take anything. And then when you're at that point, of course, what you do take is the con men and the betrayers and the lazy ones, the people who are going to let you be the more interested party. People who will let you fool yourself that that's not what's happening. That'll kind of like play into no, I really care about you, or like, oh, I'm really going to hold up my end this time. You can count on me. These are exactly who you're attracting to yourself when you are worn down. So it's not an option to be heartbroken. I mean, you go off and be heartbroken, but you can't approach new things and you can't build new things if you're carrying that energy with you of being a failure, being heartbroken, I can't do anything, I'm not enough. Like when you approach situations with that energy, people who would be valuable to you are going to immediately see that. And people who want to take advantage of people, weaker than them to kind of have somebody a peg beneath them, they'll mistakenly assume that you're that person. And they'll in my case, they'll have another thing coming, right? I get my damn vengeance, but at a great personal cost. It's not worth it to anyone. It's a disgrace, all right? So, now, why this works. By moving through these steps, you shift from blaming third person to understanding second person to owning first person. The process transforms painful emotions into a deeper self-awareness, helping you reclaim the disowned parts of yourself and find healing. So there we've taken an insanely complicated and intense 3-2-1 shadow process. I mean, it could be more intense, so we could be talking about grief or struggling with disease or something, really, really serious, a prisoner of war, something like that. But middle of the road, pretty darn heavy duty, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So then I kind of got into in the wrap up here. Here's what I say. I guess in some cases, aren't some things just negative without shadow or projection? This is like an important point. I think we need to think about this. Like if I lost a child or if I'm in chronic pain, maybe in those cases I don't have any shadow to integrate, but I cry about it a lot and might not ever get over it. Does that seem correct? Right? So some of this stuff is like shadow, projection, disowning, and some of it just sucks. Some of it's just like, this is hard. And how do I know the difference? How do I know which one it is? Like in this case with my ex, with this betrayal, like I handled it pretty healthy, pretty well for the most part. It was really intense for me, but right? Like how do I know which of that is me bullshitting myself and which of it is just like, it's true. Yeah, it's just hard. It just hurts. So GPD says, yes, you're correct that not all pain and suffering arises from shadow or projection. Some experiences, like the loss of a child or chronic pain, are inherently difficult and may not involve disowned parts of the psyche. These situations reflect the fundamental challenges of life rather than psychological projection. Here's how to differentiate. 1. Shadow versus pure grief or pain. Shadow and projection involve qualities or emotions that we disown or deny in ourselves and then project onto others or external situations. For example, if betrayal feels overwhelming, part of that may stem from unacknowledged feelings about our capacity for betrayal or fear of rejection. Right, so in my case it was unacknowledged feelings about fear of rejection, not necessarily my capacity for betrayal. Pure grief or pain stems from unavoidable natural suffering inherent to life, e.g. loss, physical suffering. It doesn't necessarily point to unresolved inner conflict or disowned traits. Feeling abandoned by a partner might include a shadow element of disowning your own fears of being unworthy. So that's kind of what we just unpacked. Pure grief, losing a child, would likely evoke immense sorrow that's part of the human condition, not a shadow dynamic. And I don't know why they had to switch keels there. You could have done betrayal for both or losing a child for both, I feel like, too, because I think a parent who loses a child might have a lot of shadow there too of their own, inadequacies as a parent, feeling like they're to blame or responsible in some way, or they didn't do enough, right? That could be shadow stuff, definitely. Number 2, crying and getting over it. Some pains, particularly profound losses, aren't about getting over it, but learning to live with the grief. Adaptive grief. Grieving is a natural and necessary process for integrating loss. It doesn't imply there's a shadow to integrate, only that you're experiencing the depth of your humanity. Chronic pain. Physical suffering may challenge mental resilience, but it's not necessarily a shadow issue unless we're avoiding emotional aspects of that pain. For example, anger or hopelessness. Right? So if we're crying about something that physically hurts, most of that can't really be shadow other than to where it is, to where we're like not accepting it, or we're trying to pretend it's something it isn't, or we're grappling with our own how much it's debilitating us, or making it an excuse for things that we can't do, or roles that we can't play anymore, etc. So all these things can do projection and can just be simply pain, right? Healthy pain, healthy part of the human conditions. In cases of pure grief or pain, the work is less about shadow integration and more about acceptance, allowing the pain to be present without resistance or self-blame, finding meaning, exploring how the experience shapes your understanding of life, yourself, and others, compassion for self, recognizing the pain as a part of being human and treating yourself gently through it, acceptance, finding meaning, compassion for self. That's kind of your recipe for just pain-ass pain. And I feel like with the betrayal thing, yeah, it's like these were definitely main themes, making lemonade, that's finding meaning. Acceptance, that's just good old acceptance, facing it, letting, in my dream work, letting these betrayers into my childhood home and having a barbecue with them and telling them I forgive them. Compassion for self, romantically loving the universe, my new situation without that person, being in love with it. This is fine. You're a good guy. I accept you. You're worthy of me. That my mama likes me. That's good enough. Compassion for self. Does shadow ever appear in such cases? It is possible that shadow dynamics could arise alongside grief or pain. Blame, feeling intense anger toward others, may reflect difficulty accepting helplessness or vulnerability. Denial, avoiding grief altogether, could indicate disowned sadness or fear of confronting mortality. However, this doesn't diminish the legitimacy of pure pain or grief as its own process. Some experiences are deeply painful without involving shadow, and trying to frame them as such might feel invalidating. Yeah, that's kind of important, right? So not every time a person's sad or hurt or betrayed or heartbroken doesn't mean that they have failed to integrate something, right? This is if we get overboard with our shadow work or our armchair therapy. In these cases, the path forward often involves compassionate presence, support, and patience rather than shadow integration. So then I wanted to get a little more technical here, and maybe I've already kind of cleared up a lot of these misunderstandings that I had. So I ask, if my partner objectively betrayed me, which is to say, she claimed to love me, had me convinced that she wanted to spend her life with me, said that she was satisfied with me, there was nothing wrong, right up until the day she revealed she was moving out to be with someone else, then in that case, I was betrayed, and grief and pain are natural. I'm trying to figure out if there is some shadow to work through, as it has been more than a year and I still cry about it regularly. I'm not mad at her. I forgive her. I'm not mad at the guy she left me for. I have overcome the feelings of jealousy and inadequacy without her assistance. I am disappointed with this outcome, and I wish that it had gone differently. But I understand and have compassion for her and her plight. I don't need to change anything. I feel like my feelings of defeat, sadness, pain, humiliation, emasculation, betrayal, and inadequacy are appropriate for a long-term relationship to end so suddenly with so much dishonesty uncovered. I have gotten over the sense of feeling gullible or foolish because I believe that I was just effectively tricked. And she and I both agree that she probably has narcissistic personality disorder. That is her problem that caused this, and I did nothing major wrong. So I'm having trouble understanding whether I'm just simply going through a long-term period of grief or whether there's something I still need to confront or own in myself that will help me to move on. So isn't that like crazy? Like watch what GPT does with this. What you're describing seems to contain both elements of natural grief and the potential for deeper self-reflection around shadow aspects. Let's break this down systematically to help you assess whether there's something unresolved or if this is simply a long grieving process. Your feelings of sadness, pain, betrayal, and humiliation are entirely appropriate for the situation you've been through. Losing a long-term relationship, especially when it ends in such a sudden and dishonest way, is a profound loss. Even though you've worked through the initial emotions, jealousy, anger, inadequacy, the lingering grief reflects the depth of your bond and the weight of the betrayal. It's natural to the extent that you've processed the external circumstances and don't feel stuck in denial, anger, or bargaining. You don't blame yourself or believe you could have done something different. You found clarity about her role in the situation, possibly NPD, and don't harbor resentment. Grief isn't linear, and deep heartbreak can take years to fully heal. The tears and feelings of defeat may just be the slow, ongoing process of coming to terms with the loss. Other side of it, shadow work. Is there anything left to confront? While much of what you've described suggests that you've done a lot of inner work, there are a few potential areas where shadow elements could still be active, even subtly. Feelings of emasculation and humiliation. Even though you intellectually understand and forgive the situation, these emotions might signal a deeper narrative. Do you unconsciously tie your self-worth or masculinity to how others, like your partner, validate you? If so, the betrayal might still be scratching at an old wound tied to feeling not enough or unworthy, even if you rationally reject these ideas. So ask yourself, where else in my life have I felt humiliated or emasculated? Do I tend to place my worth in relationships or external validation? Well, I mean, this was the top of the thing, right? I talk about smug, belittling attitudes toward me. I talk about how, as an artist, I kind of take a back seat, So yeah, I have felt humiliated and emasculated outside of this relationship. It is an ongoing theme. That's where you find the shadow material. Obviously, my masculinity has always been kind of on the chopping block, and my self-worth has always been an issue. These are definitely areas of shadow. My masculine image, my sense of self-worth and effectiveness and attractiveness, and that I've felt that I've been made a fool of a lot. Betrayal and trust. You mentioned that you've forgiven her, But betrayal can cut deeply into our ability to trust. So this is just what I'm working on right now. So are you fully at peace with trusting yourself again? Sometimes betrayal by others can lead to self-doubt. Why didn't I see this coming? This may linger unconsciously even if you've consciously addressed it. Reflect on whether you feel fully confident in your judgment and instincts moving forward, or if there's a lingering sense of mistrust in relationships. That's where you got me, GPT. Like, I don't know that I'll ever be able. Yeah, I don't trust myself to make those decisions. I don't. I've just kind of decided to be a eunuch. Like, I just don't even want to try again after that, because that was, like I say, I felt like I got 007. I feel like she was just like outstanding at the game. Like, she had me totally tricked. And I feel like if I met another her, I would do it all over again. I would do the same thing because it was just such a good con. So instead, in the meantime, until I figure this out better, I really can't trust myself to do, at least pursue anything that looks like that. That's kind of where I've gone with it. Like, the only thing I will pursue at this time is something that looks nothing like anything I've ever been in before, like in significant ways. Longing, C, this is the third part of it, longing for a different outcome. You said you wish things had gone differently. Did I? This is natural, but it can also reflect a subtle resistance to accepting the present reality. Is there a part of you that struggles to let go of the identity you had in that relationship? So sometimes we cling to an old version of ourselves or the life we imagined even as we try to move forward. What do you miss most, her or the version of yourself and your life when you were with her? What can you reclaim or redefine about yourself in the present? So why that's so beautiful and interesting to me is because I did work through this part of it. This is what Yoga Adam is. I was Yoga Adam for her, with her. When we broke up, I lost that. I felt alien from that identity. I was resentful of that identity, and I feel that I have it back now, that I've reclaimed it. And again, no, I don't miss the life that I had when I was with her. It was a process of grief to accept that location, that career, that scenario. It was something that I was willing to do because I wanted that family. So it is 100% the version of myself that she brought out, and my reluctance to give her credit for that, right? Since I don't want to give her credit for that, I want to be able to prove that I can do that character without her assistance or without her encouragement or without her nurturing it out of me. I want to prove that this has been me the whole time, that I'm that guy, that I was good in the relationship because that's who I am. I'm an actually good dude. Whether your grief is purely natural or contains subtle shadow elements, here are steps you can take to continue healing. Allow yourself to grieve fully. Grief takes time. There's no set timeline for getting over a deep loss. The fact that you cry regularly doesn't mean you're stuck. It means your heart is still processing. Journaling or speaking with a therapist could help you explore if there's anything more beneath the surface. I do both. Reclaim and reinvent. Focus on reconnecting with the parts of yourself that might feel diminished or lost after the relationship ended. Confidence, sense of masculinity, capacity for trust. I do need to work on my capacity for trust. That's for sure. Ask, who am I now, and who do I want to become beyond this relationship? Unthink me. Integrate the lessons. Betrayal can bring wisdom. What have you learned about yourself, your needs, and your boundaries? How can this inform your future relationships or your relationship with yourself? That's one I do need to do more work on. I don't know about boundaries. That's what I'm working on in therapy. I need to challenge things more. I need to understand my needs better and what is realistic and what I can ask for. So I need to do more on the wisdom front. D, seek closure through symbolism. If there's any lingering sense of incompleteness, symbolic rituals can help. For example, write a letter to her. You don't have to send it, expressing anything unsaid. That's an interesting activity. I used to have a folder on my computer called mean letters. And these were, again, you don't send them, but you get it all out. Just write the meanest, or most serious, or just don't be embarrassed. Just say exactly how you feel. Call them out for everything. Dump it all in there. And oh man, it's so cool. I go back and look at some of these now even, go back and look at something I wrote 10 years ago and put it in mean letters. And it's like, in retrospect, I'm like, man, you were right on. You were totally justified in feeling all that. And if you had sent that, it would have been fair. Not a great idea, but it would have been fair. That's really uplifting for me to know that about myself, that if I look back 10 years later at these things that I think, oh, there's no way I'd ever send that, I'm being out of control, angry. No, you were being legit. Like, you had every right to say those things. Create a ritual to signify the end of that chapter, such as planting a tree or burning old mementos. Ooh. Yeah, that might be interesting. I guess I've done a few things secretly on the show, to kind of signify like little symbolic things, but that's interesting to kind of build a new chapter. I might try something like that. I like that. Consider this question. If I were to never cry about this again, would I feel like I've lost something meaningful in my healing process? If the answer is yes, then your grief may still be serving an important purpose, and there's no rush to move beyond it. If the answer is no, then it might be worth exploring whether lingering emotions are tied to an unresolved shadow. So that's an interesting question. Would I feel like I've lost something meaningful? Yeah, because I don't cry about the same crap every time. It's like every time I cry, it's like a new hook that I've found, or like a new wave. It seems to be progressive. Otherwise, yeah, I would feel like I was wasting my time with all that. So I say, this is outstandingly helpful. I have no issue at all, no resistance to spending a lot of my time crying. Crying is okay with me. I like it. I do it a lot. But I do wonder, isn't there a point where you're just feeling sorry for yourself, as in crying gets to be self-indulgent and it might just be better to redirect your attention to something more constructive? I mean, obviously, this is extremely common advice. At least the people I'm close with are always telling me to cheer up, move on, etc. Is that advice toxic? I have cried every day for about half of my adult life. I actively seek therapy of every sort, from professional to new age to friendship to acceptance to exercise and distraction. I do have time for this. I can take as long as it takes to get over this heartbreak. I'm just wondering if there will be some sort of sign that it's time to stop allowing myself to feel sad about what I've lost, or if that should be expected to happen on its own. GPT, your reflections show a remarkable level of self-awareness and acceptance, which are critical for deep healing. The question of whether crying becomes self-indulgent or whether advice to cheer up is toxic is nuanced and depends on the context and your intentions behind the grief process. Crying can be profoundly therapeutic. It releases tension, regulates emotions, and often brings a sense of relief. Your openness to allowing this process is a sign of emotional courage rather than indulgence. The fact that you don't resist crying or feel ashamed of it suggests you're not necessarily wallowing, but rather using it as a tool to process your emotions. When crying is constructive, it helps you feel connected to your authentic emotions. It provides a release rather than reinforcing hopelessness. It's paired with self-compassion rather than self-pity. Crying every day, even for years, doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Long-term grief, especially for profound heartbreak or loss, is normal and personal. It doesn't always follow society's expectations for closure. When crying might become self-indulgent. If it reinforces negative self-beliefs like I'm unlovable, I'll never be happy again. If it prevents you from engaging with life in ways that bring growth or joy. If it becomes a substitute for taking action in areas where change is needed. If it is used to avoid deeper truths or uncomfortable self-reflection. So, yeah. The distinction lies in whether the crying is helping you process emotions or keeping you stuck in them. If crying gives you temporary relief but leaves you spiraling into despair, it might be worth exploring ways to balance grief with more active forms of healing. The advice to cheer up or move on isn't inherently toxic, but it can be unhelpful or dismissive in contexts where grief needs time and space. Such advice often reflects discomfort from others rather than what's best for you. When it's unhelpful, it invalidates the depth of your emotions or oversimplifies your healing. It imposes someone else's timeline on your grief. When it's helpful, it encourages balance between processing sadness and engaging in meaningful activities. It gently nudges you to integrate joy or purpose alongside your grief. Instead of seeing it as toxic, you might reinterpret the advice as a reminder to ensure that grief doesn't crowd out opportunities for growth, connection, or joy. Signs that it's time to shift focus. You may not need to force yourself to stop crying, but there are signs that indicate it could be beneficial to shift some of your attention. If you feel stuck or stagnant, if it no longer feels like you're processing or feeling better afterwards, you're just running over the same scenarios, If you're neglecting other parts of life, hobbies, relationships, self-care, you feel like sadness is crowding out potential for other experiences, you're trying to avoid something deeper, anger, fear, or guilt that you haven't fully addressed, that one maybe. Are you holding on to the pain as part of your identity or out of fear of who you'll be without it? That one quite possibly, because I'm being sensitive, green meme, vulnerable guy here. Well, but I'm not holding on. I'm not like forcing myself to be sad. I actually would prefer to be happy, vulnerable, joy guy, happy, joy guy. But it's more like a Pepsi challenge for me to be sad with you, to feel sorrow with you. That's very unnatural to me, and it's very difficult for me to do as a goofball. When you're ready to reconnect with joy, notice moments of curiosity, hope, or lightness that you'd like to nurture. Feel a growing desire to engage with the world in new ways. Well, sure, yeah, that all happens. Sometimes intentional action can help create new momentum. Do some mindful scheduling. Give yourself some literally scheduled time to feel and process sadness, journal, cry. And then dedicate time to other pursuits. Experiment with joy. Seek out small, manageable activities that bring you pleasure or curiosity. Set gentle goals. Track patterns. Notice when you cry. Are there specific triggers? Patterns can reveal insights about what still needs attention. You likely won't need to force yourself to stop crying. Over time, you'll notice that the crying happens less often or with less intensity. This often coincides with a sense of acceptance or peace around the loss, a natural increase in interest in other parts of life, a feeling of having reclaimed your identity beyond the grief. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm arriving at. I think that's kind of where I'm getting. If this hasn't happened yet, it's not a failure. It's simply where you are. Healing takes the time it takes. All right, so I know a lot of you guys don't like this topic or when I talk about myself, but it is an important part of how I build my ability to communicate. It's, you might not agree or get this, but if I can be real with you, that helps in every sense for me to be entertaining, for me to be funny, for me to be engaging. It all comes down to me having more and more facility and comfort going to deep places with you and not feeling self-conscious or guarded as I do that. So this is like you don't have to pay attention. You could be, this is like we're all sitting around the fire and I'm just up with one person, drinking Pepsis or whatever. I don't even drink Pepsi, but drinking Sprite, maybe. We're dumping our hearts out and maybe you are hearing it, maybe you're not. That's so that like we can bond more during the day, so that we can really see each other as whole, real people. That's kind of the goal, like integral, it's the whole thing, the whole person. Unthink me, the whole thing. That's what I'm interested in here. It's maybe not the most polished. It's maybe not the best package. It's maybe not the most superlative of this or that thing, but I want to give you a really holistic show. That's what I'm trying to achieve here. This is how I do the shadow process. I did little examples. I did bigger examples. I really should have done a very little example, but that's just one part of the integral life practice methodology that I will explore in my next presentation. I'm going to talk about the entire integral life practice system, but I knew that I was going to spend a lot of time on the shadow module and the 3-2-1 process, so I was just like, you know what? Let's just get this out of the way because this is going to be dense, or not dense. I don't know. This is going to be a pretty heartfelt video. I didn't think that would be appropriate for the integral life practice video, which is more of like a tutorial kind of thing. So namaste to you, friends. And, I'm not being funny. I'm not being quite as funny today. I'm just I'm being a little weepy. I'm being a little woo-woo. That's how we do the Surreal Love Jam. There's a small sliver of people out there who are watching this. I'm pleased to share this with you. I'm doing a lot better. I need to readjust. There's a sort of emptiness that comes with like all that intensity that I was feeling is kind of gone now. And I have to kind of now, like GPT's telling me, I need to now like start structuring out like what I'm going to do with my world now that it isn't all about overcoming these really negative feelings coming from my heart hole. I have every reason to believe that it's gonna get better and better. Love you all, especially, who the hell is still here? But if you are, bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you being here with me. And It's 1 o'clock over here, so you have a good night.